Hey everyone. Okay, so this week on both my podcast and my YouTube channel, I am talking about the 10 untruths. Untruths, they're not truths, the 10 untruths that trauma teaches you. And I felt like this is a pretty big deal, something that we definitely want to address on both of these channels because this is something that I coach a lot of women around, and a lot of things that trauma really does try to sink into your mind. So, um, I definitely felt like this was a good thing to talk about. Now, you might also ask yourself, how does this have anything to do with the new year? Well, the reason why I am giving this out to you as the New Year, New You month. Um, when you're aware of what your brain could possibly be telling you and how those deep-seated beliefs, those thoughts, things like that are causing a lot of your results and causing you to stay stuck in trauma, the more aware you are of these things, the better chance you have of being able to shift them, to move them, and to actually create a word like we talked about last week that is seriously going to help you shift a lot of these untruths out of your life and help you get more into a place of power and healing and helping you really understand your mission and purpose and just the glorious human you are and why you were created for this time. Like, what is seriously so amazing about you? But you have to uncover a lot of the truths, and peel back, in a sense, that proverbial onion before you can get down to truth. If you have been buying truth, if you've been buying an untruth as truth for a really long time, it kind of just means that your brain naturally goes there. Um, and it's naturally what it adopts. But it's not giving you the tools you need to be able to actually truly heal and make the difference that you want to make in your life. So, let's go ahead and start with the 10 untruths that trauma teaches you. And, oh, excuse me, oh, big yawn. The first untruth that trauma teaches you is something has to be wrong with you, or something has to be wrong with me. If it were me latching on to one of these untruths, it would be something along the lines of something's got to be wrong with me. I have to be the one flawed. I have to be the one that something is totally wrong with. Now, you guys have heard me say in this podcast, and this is probably the first time on my YouTube channel, but um, there is an element of, I don't want to say truth to that, but there is something around that, okay? And it's this, and this was one of the main things that I had to realize when when I felt like my relationships were not showing up to support me. My relationships weren't good. My relationships were pretty rocky. Um, and I had a lot of abuse happening. That is true. Okay. That being said, the one thing I had to realize and I had to take ownership for was the one the one main constant in all of this was me. Now, that doesn't mean that I was responsible for the way such and such person treated me, but what I was responsible for is my thoughts for a lot that allowed it to happen. And I didn't realize like how I was actually showing up that caused all of this. I didn't realize how I was showing up, um, and how I was thinking and the feelings that I was experiencing and this feeling that something must be wrong with me. I somehow had convinced myself like I deserved that kind of treatment. And the reason why was because I was treating myself that way. I was irritated at other people for treating me that way, but as I got really examining my thoughts, that something must be wrong with me, something is wrong with me, like really went deeper. It went into things like I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable. Uh, I I can't do anything right. I will never have good relationships. I'm the black sheep of the family. Um, no matter I'm not worthy. Like there were so many layers to that. And I would notice, like I noticed myself one day, like I made one little mistake and I just berated myself mentally and emotionally and verbally over and over and over and over again. And it was really no wonder why other people threw that onto me. It was kind of like I was accepting it because I really truly felt like something was wrong with me. When I realized, and I'll tell you, like it's had a complete shift. Now, I believe to my core that I'm a fantastic human. I do a lot of really good things for people. I try really hard to help other people heal from trauma because if I've done it, there is no reason at all why someone else can't do that. And it's something that is a beautiful thing to step into. The world needs more people who are really, really resilient now because there's so many untruths being spread out there in this world now, and they're coming after our kids, our like women, men, like we are literally under a hellfire attack in a way, and it's it's a lot harder to be okay with not I don't want to say okay. It's a lot harder to not believe that you deserve that or that there's no hope. That's probably a better way to say that. It's a lot it's a lot harder to realize that there's still so much hope if you don't realize how beautiful you really are, just as you were created. The second untruth. I have to control everything to find peace. Now, this isn't something this isn't something that I necessarily realized I was thinking, but it was definitely in my subconscious. It was something that was totally within my subconscious. I thought that the only way I was ever going to be happy was if I controlled everything. Now, see, there's again a little bit of that element of truth. Remember how I talked about something being wrong with me, well, we are the only person at the center of this. It doesn't mean you deserve what's coming, like the verbal attacks or the unkindness or anything like that. But there is an element of truth to the fact that you are the center of this, so there has to be something about you that has to change. For me, that came down to the way I was treating myself, the way I was thinking about myself. I was allowing other people to do that to me because I was doing it to myself first. Okay? Now, you understand that you're the only thing that you can control in this life. Okay? You do want it to stop. You want the abuse to stop. You want the pain to stop. You want the trauma to stop. And when somebody is traumatizing you, it can be, I want to say, kind of natural for you to realize that, or to kind of think that if I could just control the aspects in this situation and all the aspects of the situation, it would stop. But the truth of the matter is, when you get into a deeper self-control, you learn to trust yourself. You learn to realize your value. You learn to trust God. Like, that's a big one too. I know a lot of women who are or have been in severely, severely abusive relationships with husbands, boyfriends, you name it, and they still choose to stay. And it kind of like it's because they're stuck in these untruths of trauma. Okay? I don't want that, but it's hard to leave a situation when you don't trust yourself and your ability to think and your ability to make decisions. Getting out of a really bad situation or even a really bad thought process, like we can be pretty self-abusive sometimes. And we are the one person that we can't get away from. So deciding, number one, to stop abusing yourself and stop thinking something is wrong with you is huge. But then number two, to start setting some really clear boundaries with yourself and saying, number one, I will not be treated as anything less than a fantastic human by anyone, including myself. That doesn't mean that people can't bring up their disagreements or the things that maybe I've done that have made them unhappy or things that I need to do better on. Not at all. That should be something that we do in relationships. We need to be able to talk openly with each other and honestly. Absolutely. But the more in control of yourself you are, the more influence you have over situations. And that influence is powerful. It's really powerful to simply say to someone, I hear what you're saying, and I can appreciate how you want things to change. However, to talk to me the way you are is completely unacceptable. If you would like me to be an active member in this discussion or an active member in this relationship, then may I suggest that you change the way you are communicating with me, because the way you're communicating with me right now is incredibly disrespectful. And I do not do disrespect. Something like that is powerful. And standing your ground and not allowing someone else to tell you what you should and should not be able to accept is huge. But that takes a lot of self-control. And instead of getting angry and like showing your anger, you're channeling that energy instead into your words, being very intentional with your words, and allowing truth and the power behind that truth to flow. That causes serious change. You don't have to control everything. Not at all. Just yourself, just your intention, and allow yourself to be powerful in all situations. Not controlling, powerful. Okay? Number 3, I can't be happy until someone else changes. Now, obviously, we're going to sit there and say to ourselves, that's not true. Like, obviously, I can be happy now, but that is what your conscious mind is saying. What is your subconscious saying? Subconscious is the thing that drives behavior more than your conscious mind. That's why when we are getting a certain result, we've got to ask ourselves some really, really good questions here to really check in to see what is down in that subconscious. One of the ways I explain this to my clients is one, you have your top part of the house and then you've got your basement, your conscious and your subconscious, okay? Um, your conscious mind is kind of like the top part of your house. You have control there. It's usually pretty clean. You might have a few cobwebs in the corners and things like that. The sunlight's coming in. Um, but something is coming up from the basement that stinks, and you can smell it. But going downstairs in that basement is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying because you're scared of what's down there. And if it stinks this bad, goodness, is it a body? Right? What's down there? And the thought of going down there is scary. Really, really scary. But it isn't until we clean that basement that we can truly have a happy, safe home. Things that were in my subconscious or in my basement, and I talked about them earlier, were things like I deserve to be accosted. I deserve to be abused. I deserve for people to think the worst of me. Something is totally wrong with me. Um, I'm the worst human alive. I can't get anything right. Like, and the list goes on. And this was all down there in my subconscious, and I was totally unaware of it. When you're unaware of that, a belief that is actually down there as well is likely, I cannot be happy until this person changes. I can't tell you how many times I thought that in regards to my husband and my mom and other people that I felt were giving me a lot of grief, in my relationships. This idea that I can't be happy until my husband changes or I have to divorce him. I can't be happy until my mom changes or I have to cut her completely out of my life. Guess what? Neither one of those things happened. I'm still married to my wonderful husband. I love him. I still get irritated with him. He still gets irritated with me, but we're willing to work through it with a much healthier perspective on ourselves. Same thing with my mom and me. I used to truly believe that I would never have a healthy relationship with my mom. And I'm realizing, like now, my mom and I have a great relationship. I can be honest with her, she can be honest with me, And we're able to do things together that I didn't think I would ever have the chance to do. I'm grateful for my mom. I'm grateful for my husband. I'm actually grateful for the way these people showed up in my life because it meant that I had something to heal. And healing it has given me great joy. This idea of I can't be happy until someone else changes is detrimental. It's not fair. And I don't think like we consciously think these things, but no, it's definitely down. There's a good chance it's down there in your subconscious. So have you considered asking yourself the question of how do I need to be better to myself? How do I need to show up better for me? How can I be the very best version of myself? There are definitely times where divorce is necessary. There are definitely times where we need to cut people out of our lives. But I saw a coach the other day that was saying, if your husband has a porn addiction, you need to divorce him. And I disagree. Totally disagree. That may be the case. Yes, I'm not saying that um I'm not trying to blanket statement that everyone's husband who has a porn addiction, you shouldn't divorce him, but I don't think it's fair to do a blanket statement either that everyone who has a husband who has porn addiction, you should just divorce that guy. I don't believe that either. I think it really depends on how willing this person is to work on their crap. If this guy is trying, if he's working hard, if he's a good husband and he's a good father, but he's got struggles, no, that person doesn't deserve to be divorced, I don't think. However, if they're blaming you and saying it's all your fault and they're not willing to work on their stuff and they're over there flirting with other women and saying if you looked better then I wouldn't do that kind of stuff, that guy either needs to be slapped or left. Okay? That's my personal opinion. But blanket statements usually don't work. Okay? But the one blanket statement I will make is if people truly, truly loved themselves the way God loved them, we would have a lot better society on our hands. I will say that. Okay? Number 4, I have to focus on the problem or it will never be solved. Um, again, this is one of our subconscious statements. I don't think it's something that we really are thinking about consciously. This is another one of those that's in that basement. Okay, that's definitely bringing some stink up to the top. Um, we don't realize how hard we're focusing on trauma. Our brain is wired when there's a problem to focus on it until it's solved. But it's a lot like grasping the blade of a knife harder and harder and harder and hoping it won't cut you. Oftentimes, this one lie here is one that creates even more trauma for us than needed. We don't have to always be focusing on the problem. As a matter of fact, the more we focus on loving ourselves, giving ourselves permission to be cared for, and giving ourselves permission to have some self-care, um, giving ourselves permission to focus on a relationship with Christ, giving ourselves permission to be quiet, to find a quiet place every single day and do some meditation or tapping or just getting in a flow of a good energy, doing that one thing will create more solutions than focusing on the problem. focusing on a relationship with God will definitely do more for creating an actual solution for your trauma than focusing on the trauma. See, doing these things actually releases your hand from the blade of that knife. It helps you stop creating even more trauma because you're focusing on your trauma. Okay. Um, One of the things about forgiveness that I learned, and there's so many facets to this, so this is just one thing, but forgiveness is understanding what is yours to keep and what isn't. Realizing that reliving the traumatic event in your mind over and over and over again. Now, that's not to be said that you never think about it. Sometimes you do need to think about what happened in the mindset of just simply processing it. But to relive it over and over and over again isn't a good thing. That's something that creates more and more trauma. And so forgiving it means I will focus on it and I will think about it when I need to draw power from it. But I am 99% going to give my focus over here into this relationship with God, relationship with myself, like giving myself some really good care, taking time to be quiet, taking time for nutrition and sleep, and really taking care of myself. I'm going to focus on that because that will bring you more energy, more return, more good. So that way, when you do need to go back and focus on the trauma and gain power from it, because you can, um, you'll have the energy to do so. You'll have that return to be able to come back and consider what it is you need to gain from this. Okay. Number 4, all men are broken and incapable of love. Okay. Now, this is definitely not a truth. I think that this is something I hear a lot of women struggle with, especially when their trauma has been at the hands of someone they knew, someone they loved, a father, a brother. Oftentimes, because God is a man, they think that, you know, God is uncaring towards his daughters. Um, and these may or may not resonate with you, but this is one I hear a lot, is that men don't deserve my trust. There are some really good men out there. And to truthfully have un, let me back this truck up for just a second. I would also go so far as to say that there's a lot of women out there that are broken and incapable of love because of these untruths, actually. They've adopted into their mind that they're unlovable. And so they're holding that blade of the knife really, really tightly. They're bleeding out. And men and women alike are living off of trauma. I mean, this is where porn gets created. This is where addiction gets created. This is where any unhealthy behavior gets created, is a deep-seated unhealthy belief about oneself. And so we'll try to overcompensate by either becoming narcissistic or uh, abusive or cruel or manipulative or controlling. Um, but the more I see someone, men and women alike, adopt the idea that they're fantastic humans and they truly believe that they truly believe what God thinks about them, and they go out every single day and prove that right, that they are a fantastic human by giving love to someone else, by just giving a listening ear, by creating a miracle for someone, by listening to the promptings of the Holy Ghost, by doing these things. Those people attract more of those kinds of people into their lives. I can tell you, and you've heard a lot of the people that come onto my podcast, if you've been listening to my podcast, these are people that I love dearly, and they show up to serve in a big way. These are people that believe that they're fantastic humans, and their life and their actions speak it on a daily basis. These are people who have not often, I won't say all of them, but often have spouses that support them. And if they are divorced, they will find someone who will show up to support them even more because they have such a deep-seated trust in themselves that they also know what it is they're looking for in relationships. When one thinks that men are broken and incapable of love, it comes down to a trust, and this is what I've found as I've studied this. It comes down to a trust, a lack of trust in one's ability to create a life full of relationships that show up to support them, that are loving, that are capable of love. Um, it shows up as a lack of trust in making decisions around these relationships. It shows up because one person might not actually really know what they want. They have a better idea of what they don't want. Um, and that might be hard for some people to hear. Like I will I want you to know that I honor that and I hear that. But it might be something worth looking at because if you're a woman and you want to have a really, really supportive, loving man by your side who sees every aspect of you, who wants you to just blossom and grow and flourish, you got to know what you want. And you've got to sit down and start making some characteristics. And then you've also got to start adopting a lot of these characteristics into your life. Can you say hello, finding a word here that supports you for the upcoming year? Maybe it's healthy. And that comes up to like healthy relationships, healthy, like so many things. To get your word is to really start to focus on like one of these untruths that you want to unravel. Okay. Number 6, joy is a myth. Again, one of those subconscious beliefs. Okay. We might not consciously believe that joy is a myth, but subconsciously, I know for a fact I thought that it was out of my reach. Because again, it came down to like what I believed I was and was not deserving of. Um, I really honestly thought that a good man, this goes back to, lie number 5, that men were incapable of love. I really believed that. And they didn't know how to love. They didn't know what love was. And I believed that joy was something that was for fairy tales. It was something for Santa Claus. It was something for the Tooth Fairy, things like that. I didn't believe those things existed because life had proven something completely different to me. I'm realizing, and I'm still realizing this in some ways, I should say, but I've really come to understand and realize that this belief was formed out of, again, a misunderstanding of what it was I truly wanted. It was formed out of me believing I had to like hyper focus on the problem, obsess over it, to solve it and to fix it. And I didn't have joy because that hyper focus, that hyper vigilance, this belief, this understanding of what it was I didn't want instead of what it was I actually did want and what I wanted to create in my life caused me to bleed out emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Uh, it totally caused me to bleed out. And I wasn't getting a return on that investment. So once I plucked off my attention and focus and energy on, you know, the things that weren't serving me, to focusing instead on a relationship with God and a relationship with myself and believing, like really understanding what it was I did want, my joy is constant now. It doesn't mean that I still don't have trauma that comes up. Trauma is something that doesn't ever completely leave, but it's something that is very, very quick in passing now. It's something that I have a better understanding of now. It's something that when it does come my way, I get to say, okay, what is it that I get to learn from this? You know, in a sense, kind of like focusing on the problem, but not hyper focusing on it. I'm looking at it to draw power from it instead of to solve it, to stop it. Okay. That actually creates a lot of joy in my life. Number 7, God doesn't care about me. I hear this one a lot too. Um, that is definitely not true. Uh, this is also a result. This thought is born out of a result of focusing heavily on the problem and thinking that that is what's going to solve it. Um, instead of focusing on a relationship with God. If you truly do want a relationship with God, the first question I would, invite you to ask yourself is, what is it that God wants me to know about me? What is it that a perfect father looks like to me? How does he show up? How does he show up when I'm terrified? How does he show up for me when I don't trust him? How does he show up when how does he show up for me when other people are cruel? How does he show up for me in this imperfect world? How does a perfect father show up? And then give him a chance to be that. I've said it before, I loved playing games with God. Meaning like I would go get a card game and I would deal out cards for both him and me. God and I have totally played poker. Not on bets. Well, that's not necessarily true. I did bet um my unhappiness and he took it and he changed it to joy. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm gonna cry. If there is one thing you get out of today's podcast, I hope it is that you have a being of great, unimaginable, and unfathomable power that sees you better than you see yourself and adores every single microcellular piece of you. And he is willing to put his love of you and what he knows of you into those cells. Because he wants you to love yourself the way he does. And I will tell you something. This is not something I will ever deny. Because I know where I have been and to where I am now is a huge jump, and it would not have happened without him. If God cares about me, I can promise you with every fiber of my being, he cares about you. You just have to give him the chance to do so. And you have to be willing and responsible when that thought comes up of, I asked God to show up and he didn't, to ask yourself instead, what ways did I not trust him? What ways did I not show up for me? What ways did I not allow him to show up? Because I promise you, he does. He totally does. Whew. Okay. Number 8, I have to be in control of the justice. Okay, this comes back to that control again, right? When somebody hurts us and there's no remorse for what they have done, we often sit around waiting and watching for them to feel some inkling of pain, that they might actually change the way they behave, they might actually have that great awakening. But justice is not ours. The truth of the matter is, it is not ours because God doesn't want us to have to be saddled with that burden, to constantly be trying to teach someone or to punish them or to um, teach them a lesson or wanting them to learn this lesson. That is exhausting and it takes a lot of energy and it stops you from being able to create the very best life you possibly can for yourselves. I have seen it over and over and over and over and over again. People who try to take on the justice, that is a severe, severe mistrust in God. God wants you to experience joy. He wants you to experience life as a wonder-filled, curious child should. He wants you to explore. But being full of anger and demanding justice be served immediately is not serving you because you're not able to actually see yourself or the creator that you are clearly when you're focused on justice. See, Christ claimed the sins of the world. He's already dealt with the justice side of it. And when we are begging someone to literally be slapped up beside the head with the proverbial and universal 2x4 and justice in the way that we think it should happen is mistrusting Christ's atonement. What if, and this is a big what if we trusted God to take care of that justice? What if we trusted that God knew exactly what that person needed to teach them? What if we trusted that the justice would still be served perfectly, better than what we could imagine, um, whenever the timing was right for the Lord? What if we trusted that to his care and instead we gave ourselves mercy. This is how mercy and justice flows the same way, both ways. Yes, there's a lot of people out there in this world that need some severe justice. And it seems like they're running around without any consequences. But that's not ours to determine. That's us trying to take control of a situation that is not ours to control again. Taking control over yourself again means that you're going to go find the things that do truly bring you joy. And if you're going to say that seeing that person like get hit in the head with the proverbial 2x4 is what's finally going to bring you joy, that's also not serving you either. Bringing joy to yourself comes out of one, loving yourself so much that you just want to go out and create and you want to experience a joy-filled life. Because once that person really does get that justice that you've been seeking, well then what? What's next for you? Is that seriously, like really seriously going to heal your soul? That anger is still there because it's something that you've adopted in. Joy is still there though when you don't allow the actions of someone else to control you in that way. Trusting God with the justice is a far better idea and concept than trying to keep it for yourself. Untruth number 9, I should say. I have to do everything alone. I have no support. It definitely can feel that way sometimes. And this is actually a untruth that I am even still sometimes struggling with. When people don't show up the way that I think they should, I still think, okay, well, I've got to do everything myself. But the truth of the matter is, it's not me being honest with them or me. Sometimes it takes me a couple of days to really think about what it is I truly think and what it is I'm truly feeling to put it into words. But when I'm honest with other people and I say, hey, I know you can do better. Let me give you an example, a really good example here. My husband is on a journey to really, really detect his mission and purpose right now. And I want to give him space to do that because that's a beautiful journey. That's a beautiful experience. You're going to find a lot of beauty about yourself when you lean into that. Like so much beauty. Um, but he had thrown a few things he told me he would do back in my direction. And I was a little bit mad about this. And I was like, why does that make me mad? Like, I don't mind doing laundry. I don't mind doing dishes. As a matter of fact, I actually enjoy taking control of my household, and making sure like things are done and working on a schedule and being organized. Like, I love that. Love, 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 love that. So why does this bother me so bad? And as I got thinking about it, it came back down to this feeling like I have to do things alone. And that it was just really bad communication on both of our parts. And so when I expressed that to him, I said, the reason why this made me mad is because it triggered that aloneness in me. And I want to create things with you. I want to be on the same page with you. To I want you to grow and I want to see you be happy, but I also want to be a part of it. Like, I want you to talk to me about things that you think would be helpful instead of just throw 'em my direction and expect me to be okay with it. Like, that didn't feel respectful. And he was super awesome about listening to that. People that like it gave me being honest with him and like having an honest conversation gave us both the opportunity to be present with each other and fully present and fully loving. It doesn't mean that I wanted him to take over the laundry. No, matter of fact, it's doing a lot better with me being back in control of it. But it gave us the ability to connect again and connect deeper and over and over again. Honesty does that. Not blame. I didn't say he was responsible for it. I said it made me feel this way. It helped, it triggered an insecurity within me. Honesty is a beautiful thing in relationships. It gives people the opportunity to actually show up and support you because they'll understand you better. Patience, by the way, I should also say before I move on to number 10, patience is also something that should be considered as you are communicating because there will be times they don't get it. And in those moments where I have tried to communicate over and over and over, this is something that I see is needed, something that I see needing to be happening, like and my husband just doesn't get it. And I know that it will help us both, then those are the times where I get to be patient and trust God. Trust that God can teach him in ways that I can't reach him. Trust that he is God's son, that God knows him better than I do, and he knows exactly what he needs. And trust me and God to be able to go and create something else while my husband and the Lord sort this out. It doesn't always have to be on me. And the last one, I have more power as a victim. That is number 10. Um, I've actually had a lot of backlash about this concept, that I'm victim shaming or something like that, and that's not the case. Um, you can totally be somebody's victim, but you don't have to be your own. And that's what I mean by saying you don't have to be the victim. Elizabeth Smart is a really, really good example of this. I mean, here's a woman who experienced deep trauma for almost, I want to say almost a year, maybe it might have even been longer, but it was deep trauma. And I remember when they found her and how the world celebrated. But it took Elizabeth Smart a long time to truly heal from the experiences she healed from. But she will tell you the same thing, that for her to focus on the victim and how she was abused, misused, treated in the most abominable ways a human can be treated. For her to maintain her mental energy and her sanity, she had to say she refused to be the victim because she understood that is exactly what her abuser wanted. She understood exactly that that's what gave him power. And now that she was free of him, she no longer wanted him to have power. Forgiveness is refusing power. giving power to someone else that has no business having power over your life. Refusing to be someone's victim means that you don't dwell anymore on what someone said or did. You can look at it to draw power from it, but to not live in it. You get to live a healthy life. That's what I mean by not taking on the name victim. To not claim it. You don't have to claim the title of victim. That is not an adjective that should describe you. That is an adjective that someone else might use to describe you, but it never should be something that you describe yourself as. And that somebody else that describes you as their victim has no business being in your life. That is true. But the people that may victimize you, like my mom and my husband, yes, I was a victim to them. But I am not anymore, and I have a much better relationship because that was never their intent. It was their pain making decisions for them, and I got caught up in that spider web. That's what happened. But being the very best version of myself, loving myself entirely, realizing who I am to God and who God created, victim is not anywhere in that description. Fantastic human, princess of heaven, chip off the old block, those are. Creator, influencer, those are all descriptions that do describe me. Victim, not at all. Okay, guys, so those are the 10 untruths that trauma teaches you. Some of those might have stung, and I want you to know that's not something that is my intention at all. But the more awareness that we can bring to our trauma helps us realize the things we actually can change. When we believe things that aren't true, those are like seriously human traps. They're sticky and they stick to us. And the way to unstick them is to literally hit it with a good dose, hard dose of truth. Leaning into truth sometimes can be a little intense, sometimes can be a little bit hard, sometimes can be a little humbling. But I do promise you this, and I am a living example of this, that leaning into truth will always bring you joy. Always. All right, my loves. So next week, where I'm going to talk to you more about affirmations versus truth. I don't believe in affirmations. I don't. I don't like them. Because there's always that little voice in the back of your head that sits there and whispers, this is a lie. Next week, we're going to talk about kicking that guy out of your head and telling him where to go and how to get there. Okay? All right, my loves. I will see you next week. Bye.